beard scratching, and also I think we're live. Anyway, so hello everyone. My name is Josh, aka Josh in the Shell, and I figured I'd go through something rather fun today. So I'll just be going through the game theory uncensored interview with Susan Wojcicki, and I want to see what we can figure out with the body language. I am live on my Discord with this as well, so anyone on my Discord may jump in at any point. Currently, we do have King Style here, and I'll just be going through and seeing what we find, and if you have any comments or questions or anything like that as we're going through it, feel free to let me know. That is the entire reason why I'm doing this with other people.
Well, exactly what may we learn from her moving a certain way? Would we figure out if she's lying?
That
Would
could be
we
the case. Essentially, 90% of communication is nonverbal. So I think it's more than that, but just to generalize it, it's somewhere around 90% of human communication is nonverbal, and that does actually include um, body language, but that also includes things such as how am I going to put this? It includes your tone of voice as well. So, like, the way you say things is technically nonverbal. Anything that's not in text is nonverbal communication.
hmm,
And what'll happen is a good portion, I don't know a percentage, but a good portion of your body language is completely unconscious. So, what we're looking for are things that will tell us, is she tense? Is she comfortable with Matt? Um, are the things that her body is doing congruent with what her mouth is saying? Like, if her words say, I went over to the shop, but while they're speaking, one thing that you might notice when someone's lying about something, yes, I went over to the shop, they might subtly shake their head. Um, so as we go through, I'll be pointing things out. The thing about lie detection, or determining meaning out of body language, is really tricky because you don't have just one tell. You don't have just one thing that you're looking for. You need to look for the incongruencies, where the words don't match what their body's doing, but you also have to gather up information because sometimes people will have incongruent body language just because they're stressed out, and it won't be consistent because over time they'll get more comfortable, or if things get more tense they'll just get more tense and more tense, but they're not giving us enough per se all the time to accurately say whether or not they're lying. So we have to look at the whole picture. We have to take it all in and see what happens.
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I've experienced that myself in the past. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have.
Yeah, and this is something that people who are very empathetic tend to pick up on without realizing that they're picking up on it. Um, so hopefully at some point, sorry, I'm just sharing all this on social media. Um, hopefully at some point, I God damn it, I lost my train of thought. Hopefully at some point we can figure something out, but I'll just be pointing out the different things and what they could mean, and then if we come out with a conclusion of I think she was holding something back or lying, then we know a little bit more. Or we might just go through the whole thing going, yeah, she was just super stressed. Or we might come out saying she was really honest. And I've only seen a few minutes of this originally, so I want to go through more of it and see how that goes. All right. So let's go ahead and are you watching on the Go Live thing on Discord?
Don't worry, I'll figure it out.
Oh wait, are you
Yeah, don't worry
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
right.
Don't worry.
Yeah,
Don't
I
worry
totally
about it.
forgot that doesn't always work for you.
Do not worry about it. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna go
I'll get
ahead.
I'll
You
I'll get the
might
gist
at
of it.
least be able to hear it.
Yeah, I'll just mute the video for myself and the actual video, and I'll just listen to
Yeah,
the
I
audio.
also think the audio it'll be on a delay, so it won't match up with what you're watching. But I think the audio is set up to go through to you on Discord, so that should help.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. So let's
Don't worry.
get
I thought of this
this.
ahead of time. I'm like a chess player. I think like 5 moves ahead. So even though I suck at chess, but I can learn.
I think several moves ahead. None of them work, but you know what? I'm trying. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start the video and see how it goes. Oh, wait, no, hang on. This is just Matpat's intro. We can skip past that and just go straight to the interview. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to start off with our baseline. So I'm going to stop it right here at the beginning. And King, as you're watching, I'll have this pause so you should be able to see what I'm talking about.
What at 140?
Uh, well, I am at 126 right now where I'm
All right.
paused.
Got it. Just want to make sure. That's
Oh
all.
yeah, totally. Um, so there's no sound on YouTube? Hang on. And let me see. Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh, that's not good.
Hang on.
Two.
I need to check
We're live,
something on
folks.
well, they can hear you and I can see that it's not quite working. Let's see. All right, give me 1 second. Um Yeah, Colin, I think I know what the issue is, and I'm just gonna do a quick fix because I'm lazy. But I'll have to. OBS has been kind of obnoxious lately. Okay, let's add a source. Go to my browser. Okay, that should hopefully work. All right, let's see.
Is it
Oops.
working now?
Well, maybe. Now they see behind the scenes. I accidentally left my tool up. Um, so let me see.
Uh-oh.
Time to sit down on the couch with me and all.
Oops. Well, it is kind of working, but now I can't hear it because I didn't think part of that through. One more sec. hate that that's default. Okay, I'm gonna have to play around with those settings a little bit more later, but yeah, it is working now.
He probably won't be inviting me back.
There we go. All right. So back to 126, where I was. So this is our.
Thank you for taking time.
Yep. There we go. Okay, so back to that frame. That was fun. OBS hates me, apparently, but that's okay. Yeah, so when you look at 126, 127, you get how they started the interview. They had just kind of done introductions. They're both sitting down, and they're both positioning themselves in a way that feels comfortable to them. And subconsciously, what this will do is give us a baseline for how they're feeling at the beginning of the interaction. So, they're both vaguely facing each other. I mean, the chairs really aren't set up in a way that allows them to really face each other. So that's going to be a little bit difficult to be able to say for sure, who does or doesn't want to face the other person. But what we can tell is that Susan is crossing her legs and holding her hands right on her knees. She has very
She's
stiff.
smiling.
Yeah, she is smiling. But
Her
here's
shoulders are stiff.
yeah, so her whole body is stiff, but what I want you to do is take one finger and just cover up her mouth. This is a really quick trick you can tell to see how someone is really feeling when they smile, because usually you can cover up their mouth and you can still tell they're smiling. But if you cover up her mouth and nose with a finger, you can tell that her eyes are a little bit worried. So we can't say for sure that she is in fact worried, but we can say that, at least in part, that smile is a little bit forced, but it's not to say that she's not happy to be there. She's probably just nervous, which we can see by the stiffness in her body. We'll contrast that with the big motions that Matt has been making just while sitting down. His legs are open. His hands are
Open?
sorry, I just got a notification. His hands are kind of moving around. He's not just clutching onto his cards. He's moving them both, gesturing. If we watch a little bit
To
more.
sit down on the couch with me and all of us.
Of course.
Yeah, see, he does put his hands together every now and again, but as you see, he has a lot of motion in what he's doing. And so that just shows that he is certainly more comfortable than Susan is right off the bat. And at this point, we'll just let it play out, and we'll watch a little bit more and see, just kind of see how things change and if there's anything significant as we go through the rest of the interview.
I know you're super busy. You just came from Arizona.
Yes. But I was very excited. I think this was an important event, and I'm glad that we have a creator summit just for gamers, and I was really glad to be here and to answer your questions. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to ask me.
So I know that we don't have too much time to ask questions today, so we'll get right to the point. But first,
Okay.
what's your history with gaming? I'm just curious. Do you play games at all? Any of your children play games?
Well, all my children play games.
Okay.
And
noticed
so
something.
that is
What'd you notice?
She was breathing a certain way.
Yeah,
Almost like-
it just seems to reinforce the fact that she's stressed. So sometimes when you're stressed, your breathing's going to change a little bit. Sometimes you'll forget to breathe and then you'll breathe a little weird. Sometimes it'll be heavy breathing. It's really not that huge of an issue, but yeah, so far she has, if you'll notice, I mean, just his first question is such a low ball, and you'll notice right away that her legs have uncrossed, her hands are still touching, she's still a little nervous, but she has gotten a little bit more relaxed. Just answering this first question about is she a gamer? I mean, she's answering no, she's not really a gamer, but she is a little bit more comfortable. So I think that was a really good move on Matt's part. Sea Monkey from DLive is saying defensive than all my children play games. That is a good point. You're right, it doesn't answer the question, but at the same time, it's not really the most important question in this interview, I'm sure. If you weren't here for my intro, I haven't seen the whole thing yet. So I'm not going to put too much stock into it. All I will say for now is that we do have her becoming a little bit more loose, and we'll see how she continues to answer these questions.
And the way she's sitting from
probably
the
main
pause,
way at
how
this
you
point
paused
in my
it,
life.
Yeah.
it makes it look like she doesn't want to be there.
Right, and that's the thing, like, she is more relaxed, but at the same time, she is faced more away from Matt. She has moved her legs so that they're facing a little bit more away from Matt, but she is not, it doesn't look, and you can't really see her feet, and that's the biggest issue here with trying to read this part of it, and I still want to try and avoid reading too much into the beginning, but if her feet, for example, were starting to kind of point away from Matt even more than her knees are, then that would be a bigger indicator that she doesn't want to be there. More than likely, what I would say, if I was going to kind of stretch this, is between the fact that, as Sea Monkey is pointing out on DLive, that she's kind of deflecting from a really easy question. I think it's the idea that she feels like she should have more in common with the people who are kind of upset with her, but she can't really relate to them. And so to that extent, her body is ever so slightly shifting away from Matt as she's answering it. She is more relaxed because it is a low-ball question, but at the same time, she doesn't feel like she's able to represent that demographic, and that's probably going to end up being a problem for her, either consciously or unconsciously. She will have a problem with that. And we'll see what she does with some of the more serious questions in a little bit.
That I'm interacting with gamers. I play with them sometimes, and they all play with each other, and they tell me about what they love about it, and sometimes I'll play with them. But that's, I see, like, I think, I wish I could say I have
She's
tons of
gesturing
time
more,
to
that's
always be
good.
playing games, but I think, like,
Wait, you have other
want
things
me
to do?
also
Still
to
very
be
stiff,
focused
though.
on all the issues
Recrosses her
and
legs.
products that we're building at YouTube. But I do, when I spend time with my kids, sometimes I play games with them, and I see their love and passion, and I see how fun it is and how engaging it is, and how you can.
Okay, I did mention tone at the beginning. I know she's from California. However, when she ends everything that she says on an upward pitch, sometimes I play with my kids. It makes it sound like a question, and that's usually a sign of uncertainty. And that increased after she closed her legs again and clasped her hands again, and now she's cemented her place away from Matt. So right off the bat, she got more comfortable and then tightened up again, meaning it. I don't want to ascribe meaning to that at all. I'm just going to put that out as an observation, because we're going to need to see what she does later on for me to know kind of what that might mean.
I can spend a lot of time playing games.
Yeah,
so
sure, of course.
So yeah, I get it. I get why it's meaningful.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you segued to the big issues of YouTube.
You're right about the pitch, though.
I started off with a little softball, but
Yeah,
it's gonna
we'll
get
see
hard
if
in
she
a hurry
starts
since we only have
having
half
more
hour.
downward
So first question I have for you
tonalities.
is gaming as a second-class citizen here on YouTube, right? So,
Oof. Oh, man.
gaming. I
Starting
did the
off as a
research. 50 billion watch hours
Second question
last
is a
year on the
whopper.
platform. 200 million people coming to this platform every single day, specifically to watch gaming content. You look at most subscribed channels on this platform, and they're mostly baby songs singing
Look
Baby
at how
Shark.
Matt's
but
leaning
after
in
that
there.
is
He
gaming,
is
right? Gaming is
comfortable
the
with this
second largest
situation.
vertical on the platform. Only
And he is
music.
interested in her
and yet, if
answer,
you were to ask a
and
lot of
she is
people
just
sitting in this
stiff as a
room right
board.
now, I think they would probably say that they feel a second-class citizen on this platform. You know, YouTube
Oh,
is
that
more than
YouTube
happy to
money,
prop
they would
up its
actually
beauty
teach her how
creators,
to
its
present
vloggers, its
herself in
educational
interviews.
YouTubers, and yet gaming kind of feels off to the side.
That
Right?
can be hard.
They're not invited to
Again,
the
a
Met
lot of
Gala
this
like
is
the
completely
vloggers are.
unconscious.
They're
Did
not
you want to go to the Met Gala?
True.
Who wouldn't want to go to the Met Gala?
Yeah, and when
Honestly,
she
I mean, like,
gestures,
that's such a
hand
huge
goes out and then
opportunity,
right back.
You know, Robert
She's
Kinsale
trying
and
to.
you,
She
you've
is
both been
trying
kind
to
of
look
touring
open.
around doing interviews
I feel like
with,
this is more
creators.
trying to look open
This
than
is
actually
really your
being
first
open.
interview with a gaming creator, right? There's all sorts of stuff out there that feels like gaming is kind of a second thought. We're relegated to our own platform with YouTube Gaming, our own app, our own social media handle, our own trending tab. It feels like we're being segregated off from the rest of YouTube, even though we're delivering a huge value to this platform. So what are your thoughts on that? Is this a true feeling? Is there a reason why gaming kind of feels like its own entity relative to the greater YouTube community?
So I think, as you can tell, I was clear just to ask whatever is on your mind. And not edit it in any way.
I was surprised your team let some of these questions
Oh,
through,
of
so I'm
course.
curious,
No,
yeah.
I wanna hear what's on your mind.
I can tell in his voice that he is completely, like you said, he was, like when he was leaning forward
Mhm.
before,
Mm-hmm.
he is determined to get this interview done in such a way to not only impress himself, right,
Mm-hmm.
but try to impress the interviewee, if that makes
I,
sense. Like
I,
he
I
wants
I
to.
don't think it's necessarily about impressing. What he was showing was interest. His body language is very open. He is relaxed. He is confident. He is comfortable. And as he leans in and as he gestures, he is showing interest and he is showing, hey, this is something really important that I'm saying here, and I'm comfortable saying it. And he is still facing her. Like you'll notice in this pause screen, he's facing her, she is facing completely away from him. And even if she gestures to him, hand right back to the lap. And again, like her initial response was made with a very uncertain tone. But
Yeah.
again, this was a hard question. Let's see how she answers the rest of it.
And I mean, my answer would be no. I mean, gaming is an incredibly important part of our ecosystem. It's why I'm here. It's why we're having a gaming summit.
Oh
We
God,
think
those upward
gaming
inflections.
Is an incredibly important
Gaming
part for our users,
summits.
and all of you as gamers are, and gaming creators is a segment that we really want to be investing in. And I mean, I'll tell you, when I first got to YouTube, which I've been there for 5 years, I immediately
God, she's not
said,
even looking
this is
at
an
him.
important area and we need to be investing.
She's looking at the audience.
And I assembled the first
what?
team
She's
that
not
was
looking at him because
dedicated from
to
an engineering
her,
perspective.
He's just another random guy that she's gonna have as an interviewer.
I think it's more to do, and this is just my opinion. I do think it's more to do with the fact that, you know, Matpat is a pretty big YouTuber, and he is asking hard-hitting questions that she's kind of been at the brunt of some criticism for a lot of these feelings that gaming YouTubers have. So far, it seems more that she's still, right now, I don't feel like she's necessarily being unhonest, but she's certainly stressed and uncertain of what she's saying, which is probably not a good thing.
Yeah, you're right.
So let's see. She is actually, now that it's paused, she does actually start gesturing. Let's see if she opens up more and maybe starts to have a downward inflection on her statements.
To supporting gaming on our platform. I talked to our team. I wanted to make sure everyone that was on the team was a gamer, and talked to them and said, what are the most important areas for us
Why
to
does she
invest
say
in
gamer
at
like
YouTube
that?
for the gaming community? And they identified a number of areas.
I think it's just the way she talks, honestly.
One was live, just to put in perspective. We
'Cause she's
didn't
done
have
it every
live.
time.
We understood that that was an important category for us, and took some investment on our side. We also realized that we needed to have the product more customized for gamers. So at the time, they wanted to have a separate app, which we now no longer have, because we realized that gaming really was best served in the main app. But we wanted to make sure that we have gaming pages, that you actually are getting the right results when you type in any query for a game. And we also wanted to see that there were a lot of other features that we thought would be relevant and
gesturing a
useful
little
for
bit
gamers.
more, so
it was
she's getting
actually
a
our
little more
gaming team that
comfortable with
developed
what
a lot
she's
of core
saying.
features like memberships, super chat, super stickers. So all of that functionality was actually developed first for the gaming community. So you could look at it the other way, and you could have our other creators saying, like, how come gaming's getting all of the cool features first? Yeah. Why did they get live? Why did they get all the memberships? And again, like, we really want to make sure
Still really
that we
uncertain,
are that we're doing what we can.
Still
to
doesn't
support
want
this
to face
important
Matt.
vertical for YouTube, and that's again why we're here. And you'll see
Putting
us
pressure
continue
to her
invest.
thigh.
And our team's always coming back to us with different feedback and ways we
I
can
don't
do
see
more.
any self-petting. She's not
Account
rubbing her
linking is
legs
another
or
area where
rubbing
we've
her hands
invested.
together so much, so
I think you heard that in the last talk, that we have 5 of the top 10 games on YouTube have account linking. So those are all different areas that we're investing to make sure that YouTube is a really committed and great partner to gamers.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that's good to know. But taking it even one step further back, is YouTube still a platform for creators? How do creators factor into kind of the larger scheme of YouTube? Because less than a month ago, YouTube kind of threatened to remove verified check marks from thousands of channels, right? Like, that was a huge blow, and a lot of these channels, some of which you are probably sitting in this room right now, were grinding away on the platform for years, and yet a celebrity walks in and they immediately get the check mark and it's allowed, even though...
Okay, hang on. I want to go back to something real quick.
Where?
Just a few seconds ago.
Sitting in this room right now, were grinding away on the platform for years.
Hang on. Maybe a little further back.
Platform for creators. How do creators factor into kind of the larger scheme of YouTube? Because less than a month ago, YouTube kind of threatened to remove verified check marks from thousands of channels, right? Like, that was a huge
Okay. So, the thing I saw, and I wanted to double check and see that I wasn't misinterpreting something. Because this deals with blinking and the length of time that she used to blink, and that can be real tricky because sometimes people just do that, and it doesn't necessarily mean what you think it might mean. So I was just double checking. It did
Some
seem
people have droopy eyes.
Yeah, well,
sorry.
but her blinking is normal everywhere except when he's saying a specific issue that could not be attributed to anyone other than YouTube. And so I can't say for sure what that means. All I can say is something that was absolutely YouTube's fault, and Matpat is laying out the details of that incident, and she starts closing her eyes that much. Not always, but it can mean that you are trying to hide a little bit.
I've experienced that before in the past.
Yeah, they might try to hide from what you're saying or try to hold something back, like, kind of, almost like a conditioned response, a bit of comforting yourself by leaving
you
those
ask
lids down a little longer.
You ask them a question, they don't want to look at you directly. Yeah.
Right. So let's see how she actually answers it, though.
blow, and a lot of these channels, some of which you are probably sitting in this room right now, were grinding away on the platform for years, and yet a celebrity walks in and they immediately get the check mark and it's allowed, even though they're kind of like a passerby on this platform, right? What does that, I mean, to the external eye, that feels like creators are no longer a priority on this platform or a small piece of it. So where do we fit into the YouTube ecosystem in 2019?
So verification was definitely, we apologize for that, that we made a mistake. But let me tell you, it was not to prioritize traditional celebrities over endemic creators or gamers.
Okay. On the one hand, yeah, uncertain tonality again. But also, and again, on its own, doesn't mean a damn thing. With everything else that we have so far and with what we're about to hear in her explanation, she does turn to the audience and start everything off with, and let me tell you, that doesn't always mean anything. It's a little hard to tell what that might mean here, but that all that does for me is throw up a red flag. All that together, all that combined throws up a little bit of a red flag, but there's nothing definitive you can really say about it. So we should probably be watching closely what she's about to do and or say and see what we think.
Anyway, the team identified that there were a number of ways we had that they wanted to clean up how we had done verification. Verification has been around for a number of years. And as a result of that, we had verification many different ways people got verified. So in the past, you could have like 2 subscribers and just apply and get verified. And we didn't have a consistent way of doing verification. And so the team did want to have more consistency with that going forward, which is why they made the changes that they did. But we also realized how, afterwards, A, I think there were some problems in execution, but then B, on top of that, we realized how important it was for creators. We heard everyone loud and clear.
She can't do it.
Well, she can't even properly face the audience either. You notice she only shifted her torso when addressing the audience.
And going forward, we will implement the new standards going forward for creators. So it didn't have anything to do with one set of creators being preferred over another set of creators. It really just had to do with how we make changes and trying to make verification more fair for everyone.
Okay.
And to be clear, we go to extraordinary lengths to try to make sure that we are fair for everyone.
Arms
not
as
just
if she's dancing.
One vertical versus
well,
another.
the gestures
not
are
gaming
still
versus music or
flowing with the
traditional
words she's
celebrities that
saying,
come
so
from
that is a good
TV
sign that
versus
she's not being
creators that
deceptive
got
to
started on YouTube.
herself
We're
or
trying to think
the
about
others,
how can we enable our
at least in the
overall
exact words she's
platform
saying.
and our users who come and enjoy all types of content. How can we make sure that everyone is having a better experience? How can we make sure that we have the right monetization for creators, no matter what background they are? And we also see that creators change, that they may do a combination of different types of media and cover different types of events.
So I notice anytime she's talking about the YouTubers themselves, her tonality gets much more uncertain when she's talking about what they're doing at YouTube or what the technical aspects of something are. Then she's far less uncomfortable talking about that, and perhaps that's why we're seeing more consistent gestures now than we were before. I can't say for sure, but that's a thought.
So basically that means that she doesn't pay attention to the actual YouTubers except for the celebrities.
It could. I don't know enough about her. I haven't. This is the first time I've done any kind of body language reading and the longest form of anything that I've seen her in, so I couldn't say for sure, but she's at least more comfortable talking about the technical aspects of YouTube than she is about the creators themselves.
And so, again, we want to support and be fair to everybody.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking of other big picture things, gaming exists in this weird nexus. Exciting, but also very scary gray area with a lot of the legislation that YouTube's having to deal with right now. I always get this wrong. The European Union's Directive on Copyright in the Digital Single Market.
Yes, we also call it EUCD.
Great. I mean, I guess that's the easy way to say it. Or Article 13. It then,
Which
it passed.
Renamed
it's now Article 17, right? It's like a shell game, right?
Yes.
It's almost like they're trying to hide it. Go figure. But basically, this is the meme killer legislation, which requires platforms to have stricter policies around content uploaded onto their platform that might contain copyrighted works, right?
I noticed something.
You and I actually spoke briefly.
What did you notice?
Notice that in the video, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was edited. Like there was like a flash that appeared. I guess that means that either the phone rang or he got nervous. Matt got nervous with the asking the question, so he must have fumbled.
Either I missed that, or I might have just missed that, or that was on the stream.
I'll go back. Yeah, I'll go back to it. Hold on.
Okay. Because yeah, see if it's an interruption on my end or on the video itself. Because I didn't notice that, but I might have looked away, like literally just in
No,
time
no,
for
I'm
that.
I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it.
I mean, so far, just while you're looking for it, so far it doesn't seem like she's lying. I don't see much indication of that, but it does seem like she's really not comfortable. She's not comfortable with the questions, and she's really not comfortable talking about creators in the first place. Like, she seems to wish she could simply talk about the algorithms and the technical aspects of the company rather than the creators themselves. So
I,
take that for what you will.
I noticed something. Go back to 10:28 or 10:29, right around there. Before 10:30 mark,
Okay.
you will see the
The
thing where
legislation
pretty
that
much they
YouTube's having to
edited
deal with
the
right
video,
now.
so
I
he
always
must
get
have
this wrong. The
fumbled.
European
Oh yeah, I must have looked away when that happened.
Yeah. I pay attention
So,
to details, man.
Yeah. It says uncensored, but not unedited. But
A little bit of
both
false
of their
advertisement. See that?
well, both of their body language is basically the same, so I think we can assume nothing significant happened in that little flash.
You're probably right.
Let's go ahead and continue. They're talking about what was it, Article 13 and the European rules that would just make memes impossible. Well, supposedly, if they were enforced in the wrong way.
actually spoke briefly
let's
at
see.
Google Zeitgeist a year ago about this policy, the impact it would have on YouTube, and you were very vocal against it, right? But now here we are, a year later, it's passed, and as of this June, there's now a 2-year ticking clock for platforms to be compliant with this legislation.
Countries.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Countries to be compliant.
Okay, that's a good distinction to make.
You
So, how
shifted
are
a
your
little
feelings
closer.
about what eventually did get passed as Article 17? What changes is
Yeah.
YouTube making in response to it?
I think
and
the fact that
as
she actually
gamers, who
corrected
a
him
lot
made
of
her a
our
little more
content is built
comfortable with
on
herself for a
the
second.
backs of copyrighted works in
Yeah,
the
a
video
little
game
bit of
itself, even if it
a
is fair
trip,
use
if
or
you know what I
whatever.
mean.
Where do we sit in that ecosystem?
Yeah. Well, YouTube has enjoyed tremendous success, and as we've grown, and as we have more users, and as we have more creators, there certainly has been a lot more scrutiny, and that has come from regulators and policymakers and press and many other places. And we want to make sure, A, that we're transparent, so we're talking to them and explaining what we're doing and explaining all the benefits that come from that. And as there has been more interest in legislation and passing rules for not just YouTube, but all
11:49, she got
different
nervous.
types of digital platforms,
She said
we are
so
often engaging
and
with.
repeated so again.
Yeah, there was that, but one thing that I am noticing is at the beginning, like once she actually got into, and this actually that was a good catch because that literally led into during her whole explanation there. What ended up happening was a lot of looking at the audience, looking at Matt, a lot of indicators of believe me, but believe me, please believe me. Like if you can imagine, just a quick way to know what to look for is to ask yourself if someone was showing you a video and you were just like, okay, that sounds impossible, and they're like, oh no, there's video. Imagine what they would do when showing you that video with their head and their eyes. Like, how would they look at you? How would it position? They would kind of crane their neck in a little bit and like widen their eyes if they could. And so there's a lot of like looking to see if people are believing them, kind of pushing her head back and forth a little bit like a like a chicken or something. She didn't do it a lot, but there was a little bit of indication of, hey, you gotta believe me, right? It was, the press is bad and these things are all problems for me, right? You believe me, right? So there's definitely a little bit of that in there. Let's see the rest of her explanation, see if she gets a little more comfortable with it.
those policymakers and explaining why our business is set up the way it is, and there's lots of back and forth. And most of the times we're able to work through it on our own and come up with.
She stumbled again on her
No,
words.
no. Something even more magical. Something even more beautiful just happened.
Oh shit! I didn't catch it.
It was very, very subtle. But remember when I was explaining things at the beginning of the stream on what you're looking for incongruencies?
Yes.
And when you're shaking your head no when you mean yes about something? She was saying, and we're able to, while she's shaking her head no.
Oh my god! I gotta repeat. I gotta play that.
Yeah, let me see.
This is set up the way it is, and there's lots of back and forth. And most of the times we're able to.
It's so beautiful. All right. So she clearly does not believe that they're actually able to do whatever she's about to say most of the time.
Work through it on our own and come up with something, and in the background we adjust things or we make our system
She keeps
compliant,
doing it.
and it's something that you as creators don't really need to worry about. And we try to make it so that most of the time that's what's happening.
Yeah.
What happened with Article 13, which had been in discussion and had been in the works for a while, is there are multiple factors of how the European law is created. And so when the Parliament passed their version of Article 13, we realized
nobody
that
looks
there
at her
was
all the time.
that specific
That's
legislation.
Well, she's
was
probably
really
not
gonna be
comfortable with
damaging
speaking to
YouTube.
one person at a
And
time.
it caught us by surprise because the previous
She doesn't want the
versions and
pressure
drafts
of
we had
one
seen
single person.
were
She'll
not
move
nearly that
around
severe.
until
And
she
because
finds
it
someone
became
who
very close to
doesn't
being
seem
passed into
intimidating.
law, that's when we asked for all of you to participate and explain, because
if
we
I
wanted
was
to make
being
sure that you
interviewed,
understood.
I don't know. I
like,
think I would be uncomfortable with being interviewed by like 4 or 5 people, maybe even 6. You know.
Well, but she is only being interviewed by one, and normally during an interview like this, you wouldn't be addressing the audience, you would be addressing the interviewer. Now, some of this is a bit on Matpat for not being able to get her into his world before they started so that she is more focused on him. He wasn't quite able to do that. He is still far more comfortable than she is. He is still listening to everything she says. He's still acting in a very polite manner. They both are acting in quite polite manners. But as far as what she's doing, it's more of the fact that he hasn't pulled her into his world at this point. And so she's able to more easily, without feeling guilty, turn and address the audience as if she's giving a talk, as opposed to addressing him directly. And that probably makes her more comfortable, but you can't stay on one person for too long. I would imagine, obviously we can't see what they look like in the audience. I would imagine there are some intensely interested people there who she's just like, and, oh, no, not looking at you.
But it's like she's making a fake TED Talk to herself or something.
Probably. I mean, that's probably what she's doing, either consciously or unconsciously, and that's probably fairly soothing for her. It's really not going to help her as much as she would hope, I think, though. So yeah, still very uncomfortable. Only a few incongruencies so far, so I think she's trying to tell as much of the truth as possible, but there are definitely some things that she's just not prepared to give a real answer for so far. Let's go ahead and continue.
How serious that was, that if that legislation got passed the way it was, that it would have really far-reaching implications for creators all over the world.
Yeah.
And so when we, thanks to all of your work, thanks to everyone speaking up, I also flew. I went to Strasbourg. I met with a number of policymakers. I wrote a number of op-eds. We were very active in explaining, we want to do the right thing. We want to work with rights holders.
You don't need to worry about it.
One thing I will say, don't overanalyze the upward inflections, because a lot of times when she's using them, it is to make a list. But when it's not making a list or asking a question, that's when the upward inflection, kind of throws off a red flag about her being uncertain about what she's saying. So right here, we had a good example of her listing things. And because the list was not over, she was going up on every part of the list. Because, you could easily have, someone saying, oh, what kind of animals do you like? Oh, well, I like dogs, and I like cats, and I like rabbits. So on the last one, the final animal that I like is rabbits.
And guinea pigs.
And guinea pigs. But it's like, the kind of... So there's a... I'm just going to explain this a little bit in terms of music. There's something called a hanging seventh in music, and the upward inflection, when speaking in English, the upward inflection at the end of a statement or a word turns it into a question, and will either imply that you're not done talking, or you're not done with that particular statement, or that you're uncertain about what you're talking about. In the middle of the sentence, usually it implies there's more to the sentence. At the end of the sentence, that's going to mean that they're more uncertain, they're questioning. It's the same thing with music. When you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's an octave. So let's say it's in the key of C. You have C as 1, and you have C as 8. Why would you have 2 C's in a scale? What do you think, King? Why would you have 2 C's in a scale?
Oh, man. Would you have 2 C's?
It's a real simple answer, because it doesn't sound right otherwise. Would you like me to give you an example of an octave scale without that repeated note, without the 2 C's?
Sure. Go
1,
for it.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It sounds incomplete, doesn't it?
Yes.
And that's what you call the hanging seventh. It doesn't sound complete. You want to go that one half step higher to the next note in the scale. And the same thing happens with our inflections. There is a kind of hanging aspect to the upward inflection at the end of a word. So if she's listing things off, that's completely fine, because she wants to leave that hanging so that you can expect something to come after that. But if she does it too often, or she does it at the complete end of a sentence, that's what kind of indicates uncertainty about what she's saying.
That's why we develop Content ID. We want to pay content rights holders for their content. But the way the law has been set up is it's going to cause a significant number of problems. Actually, people are going to make less money because it'll just be less of a business overall. And because of that, we were able to secure
on and off since
liability protections
2012.
when we made a best effort to be able to match the content with the rights holder.
Okay.
And because we were able to secure that liability protection, we were in a much better state.
Okay.
And so I really want to thank all
There are
the
already people on
creators
YouTube who are
spoke
way
up for
better
us.
at this than
It was
I
really
am.
the first time that we saw YouTube creators coming and using their voice and using their
Hey, at least you
platforms
have,
to be able to
talent
do
like
something
that.
was political and something that could
Some
change
people don't have
how our
that.
system and laws going
Well, I didn't
forward
have
were
it
set
either.
up. And so
I
it made a
spent
really big difference. I
hours
really wanna
upon
thank you
hours
it.
for weeks upon
Right now
weeks.
we're in a situation
That turned
where
into
we have
years
about 2 years for
of trying to figure this
for the
stuff out.
countries to transpose that legislation.
Only to find out it was a lot
And,
easier than that
We are working with
by
all
the
the
end.
different policymakers. We're bringing creators in to talk to policymakers so they understand these are small businesses, they're in your country. You need to make these are the considerations as you write your law and as you define it. So each country will have a slightly different interpretation.
Okay.
And so France is likely to be the first country. And so we're working closely with them. Netherlands is another country. So we continue to engage with all the different countries and try to explain the point of view for creators and for YouTube. Because we want to pay the rights holders. We want to make sure that if we can identify the content, they're getting compensated, but we just want it to be fair. And that's why we built Content ID system.
Right.
And we've paid out billions of dollars thanks to Content ID system to content owners.
Okay. So we will or won't be seeing a big shift on the platform in response to this?
Well, we're hopeful that we can work through enough of those changes that it will
She's back to being
that
congruent,
it
so that's
will
good.
work out for creators. We may
So
need
she
to do
she does
more-
believe that the changes being made right now hopefully will help creators. That is good to know. Whether they will or not, with how uncertain she's been so far, I'm not so confident.
some more things on the back
I
end
don't
on
believe it.
our side. We haven't
Either.
yet determined
I
what
don't-
those
I am
what they
not
are because we're in the process of creating law.
100% certain
But
that
as of right
she
now, we feel that
thinks
we're in a much
herself
better situation.
this either.
Is
She's
there
just
anything
trying to tell
else
herself
that we as creators can do to
Possibly.
help spread the good word, or is it at this point is it more interpersonal conversations, kind of led by you guys with each individual country?
So right now, I think we're in a place where the policymakers.
That's interesting.
and
Matt is also
are
getting a
having
little
productive
bit
conversations with our
like he's
team.
leaning back more than he's leaning
I think,
forward.
again, having
So
everyone
he's getting a
speak
little
up made
uncomfortable at this
difference.
point as
it
well.
made policymakers realize that this really mattered.
Yeah,
Because
he is
if you look at all the different constituents for content, you can see
trying
that
to
most of
focus
them
a
are
little
big
forward,
companies,
but yeah, he
and
is
they
leaning
have
back a
different policymakers, just like Google does, and just like YouTube does. And they were going and explaining what their interests were, and so we just wanted to make sure that they had an understanding. Like, we're representing YouTube creators. We're here to represent all of these creators who are creating jobs in your country. They're creating content. They're exporting that content. A lot of them have businesses with merchandise or other areas. And if you create law and it shuts them down, like, that's going to be a loss for your country.
Speaking of things that directly affect our monetization and our
Yes.
businesses, I see you looking at the clock, hoping that this ticks
No,
down faster.
no. You can ask me as many questions as you want.
I got to take
I'm-
advantage of this
I
time here.
came-
Well, okay, so right there, Matt used that chance at humor, and that immediately made him shift into a more comfortable position. He is already far more comfortable in this situation, and she is still as stiff as she's been this whole damn time.
Yeah.
She's not taking the humor. I wonder if maybe he'll try that again, and maybe they can kind of come together. I'm really hoping. It's probably not going to happen, but I'm hoping. I just want this story to have a happy ending. All right.
This
Here,
moment.
I
I
didn't like
came
the
here.
joke.
No,
I
you're
want your
clearly.
question.
No, you're
True.
great. I appreciate it.
Like, you could tell
Just
when
give
a
me a hard
per-
time.
like-
But speaking of things that directly
when
relate
I-
to our businesses and monetization and kind of how things are built right now,
I just hope
demonetization, right? So those were all kind of
that
like big
more
picture
women could
questions,
be more
but this is kind of more in
humorous.
the day-to-day and a little bit more directed by YouTube. So
That's a
obviously
discussion for
demonetization
another
is
time.
a worry that every creator has.
Yeah.
But again, gaming exists in that weird nexus
That's for
gray. I
another
feel like a
time, you're
broken
right, bro.
record saying this over and over again, but it exists in this weird gray area of what is and isn't allowed based on the system, right? So one thing we all know for
Maybe
sure,
it's
as
the
an example,
corporate
is like
environment
violence.
that you
Violence
can't
is
take a
something.
joke.
Well, it's certainly the Silicon Valley environment, I've noticed. And I think that's a lot of the big issues that are happening on YouTube are also happening on a lot of other Silicon Valley internet companies, you know? So Facebook and Twitter and like they're just issues that have been going on in the last few years. And I feel like the inability to take a joke is kind of at the top of the list of what's going wrong with people in Silicon Valley. So I'd attribute that more to, more to just that she's overall uncomfortable in this situation right now. She doesn't like where it's headed because she's been uncertain about everything he's asked. She's been more certain about some things. She's been certain about her willingness to help, but she hasn't been certain on her ability or her confidence in being able to help or her ability to understand the creators. And I think that's the biggest important thing that she's been unsure about this whole time is that she doesn't seem sure, as much as she clearly wants to help, I don't think she's willing to put forth, from what we've seen so far, she doesn't seem like she's willing to put forth the effort to get to understand creators and get to understand what they need help with, why they need help, and, you know, like, the old YouTube is dead. It is no longer YouTube. It is corporate tube. You know? It's not about you. It's not about the creator. And as much as she wants to help the people making the money for YouTube, I don't know. After this so far, I'm kind of leaning towards the idea that she maybe would prefer to only help the people that will help make her platform money and not help creators because that's what the YouTube community is built off of. But that is reading a lot into that. A lot of that is my opinion. But so far, we do know what she is confident about, what she is unsure about, and she's been mostly unsure this whole time. Only one, what would you call it, lie, quote unquote. I don't want to say it was an outright lie, but one incongruency that means that she could be, when she's saying that things are possible or things can happen. No, I don't believe that your team has been able to do some of the things that you're saying they have. Just based on your body language. Oh wow, we've gone like almost a whole hour into this. We'll only go a little bit further in. So at some point we'll find a good stopping point. Well, let's keep going for now. Let's see what's going on in our next little bit.
Something that's going to get a video demonetized, that's fine, but where does virtual violence fit into that, right? Some of the biggest games on the platform and biggest releases of the year are things that, that Ryan was just talking about on the stage before us. The Call of Duties of the world, the Dooms of the world. Doom is one of the tentpole IPs that's appearing on Stadia later this year, right? Mortal Kombat was a big release earlier this year. Are we as gamers just expected to just play Minecraft and Fortnite, which has gun violence, by the way? Like, where does that line exist?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say that
does
I looked
again.
at the
First of
stats
all,
overall, for gaming.
What was that?
He said, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
that's a tell.
Well, in this particular case, with everything that came after that, it was a little easier to tell why he started what he said with first of all. It seems more about the fact that he's a little worked up right now, and you can see, like, when he was saying what he was saying, like his neck got really stiff, and he not just leaned in with his torso, which indicates interest, which he's been trying to do this whole time. But he's been pushing himself, or kind of falling backwards a little bit after he pushes forward for a little while. But he also craned his neck forward, so he's really concerned about this. And I think that's where the whole first of all comes in, where it's like he understands what he's about to say is really important and really needs an answer, to him anyway, and that made him a little bit stressed. And Susan has been fairly consistently stressed this whole time, so not much change in her so far. We'll see how she answers.
I would think in California they'd be doing some yoga and what have you, but I guess, not everyone does it.
Strangely enough, people in yoga are some of the least flexible people I've ever known. Physically, they're amazing. Mentally, not so much. That's an overgeneralization. And I only know a few people who do yoga, so that's a really terrible thing to say. Anyway.
And for gamers. And I say that in general, and I understand the concerns, and I'm going to get into that and answer more. Sure. Like, looking at the stats, gamers are actually in a really good position.
Okay.
And so YouTube as a platform, we act on behalf of our advertisers. And advertisers come in all different types of preferences in terms of the type of content they want to be advertising on. You have some advertisers who say, we only want to be on the most safe type of content available, and then we have other advertisers who say, we'll be on like any type of content as long as the fans love it, like we'll be there. And so we have a broad range. I don't want to say all advertisers are the same. And so what we've done is we've tried to enable options for our advertisers to figure out, depending upon who they are, options for them to advertise with the right set of partners. And I think what we see is that most of our advertisers, just looking again at the stats, are advertising and interested in gaming.
Okay.
And so I looked at what are advertisers opting out of. You know, they opt out of issues like sensitive subjects. Sometimes like, you know, that would be an example of something that's like high up on the list.
Yeah.
Gaming is not actually high
Okay.
up on the list. I looked at the top games, and
So one thing I will say is that she has been consistent, again, with body language, with what she's saying, but she's also kind of dodging the meat of the question
Yeah.
with how she's saying it, which is potentially the only way that she's keeping it consistent. So that does drop a couple red flags. And I feel like I am going to go ahead and stop it here. I might do the rest on stream, or I might just do an edited video with the rest from 2030 on. But yeah. What are your impressions so far, King? First of all, have you seen this interview yet, or is this your first time?
This is my first time, so
Okay.
no, this is good.
Yeah, it's my first time as well. I watched the first like 8 minutes before, like maybe not even 8, maybe 7, somewhere around there, 7 or 8, just to get an idea. But once it clicked that I wanted to stream this, I stopped and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch the rest. As a genuine reaction to it.
I mean, it is interesting that, like you said, she was dodging sort of a question, but not really, because
She's
had to
answering
give
the
a
part of the
specific-
question that she's comfortable with. And she's giving kind of me personally, I don't know if there's like a quote unquote real name for this kind of question dodging, but it's kind of like I call it like a sideways answer, where yeah, I'm sure you could interpret that question to mean this is what he wants to know about, but she's answering essentially a related question. If you had two questions side by side and they were, related, you had just a list of questions. The two that were side by side would be somewhat similar. She's answering that sideways question. She's answering that different question on the list. So he's getting some kind of answer, but not an answer to the precise question he asked, which is, is violence in video games considered the same as violent videos?
I think we both know the answer to that, and
Yeah.
based on how they treat it, to them it's the same.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of nuance, but at the end of the day, I haven't seen a lot of outright deception from her, but what I do see is not very promising for YouTube as a whole. She seems to want to help, but she maybe doesn't necessarily want to help the creators for the creators' sake. Seems more likely that she wants to help the creators that make the platform money, particularly because, like I said before, she doesn't seem to really be able to, or possibly even want to, connect to the creators as they are. She doesn't want to. Gosh, how do I want to put this? She doesn't know how to connect to creators at all. She's very uncertain anytime she talks about the YouTube creators as a group, and anytime she's talking about something technical, she's far more confident, far more congruent, and seems to be dodging in a way that implies that she wants the company to continue. She wants YouTube to still have independent creators who make videos, but she doesn't necessarily care that the YouTube culture survives. And that's what I find worrying, because the best thing about YouTube for the longest time was the culture. That's what I got from that. To anyone watching, Let me know what you think in the comments down below. This is being archived on YouTube, so you can watch this anytime after this stream is done, and see what you think. Go watch it yourself. At some point, I will do the second half of this interview, either on stream or just an edited video. But yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. And King, I do really want to thank you for sticking around for this stream. Hope to have you
You're
on
welcome,
again,
buddy.
and we can maybe get you on World War Weeb at some point. I do believe we have Dark Sharingan again on our next stream, whenever that is. I'm not sure we're going to be streaming next week, but yeah, thank you so much, King. Thank you to the few people who actually watched this on a
Yes,
Friday
thank you.
evening.
Thank you, everybody that have seen this or is going to see it much later. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your morning. Peace.